What's good? It's Wood. Please like the video, subscribe to the channel if you are into the fight talk. We have Claressa Shields, 12 wins and 0 losses, defending her WBA, WBC, IBF female middleweight titles against Savannah Marshall, 12 wins and 0 losses. And Savannah Marshall will be defending her WBO female middleweight title. This is obviously the battle of Undisputed. Claressa Shields is a multiple division undisputed champion. She's won all the belts in multiple divisions, and she has won belts in 3 different divisions. And, you know, she is a 2-time Olympic gold medalist, one of the most just accomplished amateurs in female boxing history. And she is already one of the most accomplished professional boxers. And she's still 28 years old? Yeah, 27 years old, and her opponent, Savannah Marshall, undefeated WBO champion, a knockout artist, an outlier in that regard. Like, you look at her 12 wins, 10 out of those 12 wins have come via knockout. That is very unusual in female boxing. And Savannah Marshall is 31 years old. And this is just an immensely important fight, historic fight, and it's great. It's coming in the same year that we just got Katie Taylor versus Amanda Serrano. And on this undercard, by the way, Michaela Mayer versus Alicia Baumgartner, another very, very important fight. And, you know, with Shields versus Marshall, I did a full preview when this fight was originally scheduled on September 10th. That's when this fight was supposed to take place. But with the death of the Queen of England, since this fight is taking place at the O2 Arena in London, this fight was postponed. The entire card was. So the event was moved. So, you know, there's also the X factor on who's going to have more difficulty trying to cut weight again, basically a month later, because there are often difficulties in doing that. Now you got to do it twice, basically within a month and a half period. So this fight is now scheduled for October 15th. One of the most important fights in boxing that could be made. And I did a full preview of the fight initially. So if you want to look back, I did like the whole background of both fighters, like basically like what they did to get to this point. On this video, I want to focus more specifically on this matchup and just kind of give some final thoughts and ultimately, like, have I changed my mind? Initially, I picked Claressa Shields to win via very close decision. And right now, I've really been on the fence because style-wise, Savannah Marshall, the fact that she is just such an outsized puncher and the margin for error against her is so slim. And then you've got Claressa Shields, who's got fast hands, who's got an excellent jab, who could throw well with both hands. But I just feel like once she starts coming, you know, head over heels just a bit, I mean, as good as she is from a technical standpoint, I mean, she throws some pretty wide power punches that kind of leave her vulnerable for somebody who is a sharpshooter like Savannah Marshall. I mean, her nickname is the Silent Assassin. And, you know, style-wise, when you look at her, you know, ring generalship, Savannah Marshall is a type who kind of drops her hands, moves around. She looks very fluid and loose, and she just kind of has this, like, flow and rhythm about her. Whereas Claressa Shields, she's basically the one in her fight who's able to get off first. Like, she'll throw a fast jab and then throw a fast 1-2 and then kind of get in the mix with like 4 or 5 punch combinations, sometimes before her opponent is even ready to react. And when you look at Claressa Shields' career, whether she's fighting Emma Kozin, Marie-Eve Decaire, even Christina Hammer, and that was a big deal at the time. That was like a battle for Undisputed. Christina Hammer was so outmatched. And you look at Claressa Shields, once she starts getting flowing, you know, Christina Hammer was competitive for like the first couple of rounds, and then Claressa Shields took control. But if you look at the decision wins, because Claressa Shields, unlike Savannah Marshall, has won the vast majority of her fights via decision, Claressa Shields, out of her 12 wins, she only has 2 knockouts. But she doesn't have any like split decision wins. They're all unanimous, and they are all by a wide margin. Claressa Shields rarely drops around. Now, she did kind of diverge and she went into MMA for, you know, a couple fights, won one, lost one, but she was competitive and she never really just got the hell beat out of her. I mean, she got beat kind of convincingly, went in that loss in her second fight, even though that was actually a split decision loss for Claressa Shields. But since then, she came back, in February of this year. So she wasn't out of the ring for a long time, like relatively speaking. Her last boxing fight before she went off into MMA was in March of 2021. And then she returned to the boxing ring in February of 2022, 11 months later. So she wasn't out of boxing action for too long. And she looked like she more or less picked up where she left off. But Claressa Shields, again, she doesn't drop a lot of rounds. And when you're looking at Shields versus Marshall, it's important to note the difference in female boxing in that we are getting 10 2-minute rounds. It's going to go by like that. And so you don't have like the super exhausting third round where sometimes a fighter could look great in the first 2 minutes of a round, and then they really start to struggle in that final minute where the other fighters basically now got their opponent where they want them. In this case, it's only going to be 2 minutes per round. So that battle of attrition isn't going to play out in the same way that it would if we were talking 12 3-minute rounds. So I expect both fighters to more or less look like themselves. And what I mean by that is for Savannah Marshall to kind of, try to dictate the terms of the exchange, Claressa Shields to kind of try to get off with the fast punches first and to, kind of measured feint. She does a ton of feinting. Marshall does a good amount of feinting too. And Marshall, by the way, has some nasty uppercuts, whether she's leading with the uppercut or countering with the uppercut. So Claressa Shields has to be careful when she's closing the gap because it's Savannah Marshall who's going to have the height advantage here. We're talking like 5'8" versus 5'11 and a half. So, Claressa Shields has fought tall fighters, Christina Hammer, but she hasn't fought a fighter who is like a sniper in the way that Savannah Marshall is and the way that Savannah Marshall moves to kind of jab and then move her way angles-wise to start getting the power punches that she's looking for. Now, will Claressa Shields give her those types of opportunities and to allow her to get into that flow? Well, Claressa Shields had one loss in her illustrious amateur career, and that amateur loss came against Savannah Marshall. So you have that going on here as well. So this is just, again, a tremendously important fight. They do have a few common opponents between them, but it's like, I think that Shields is going to get hurt at some point in this fight. I do think she's going to get buzzed, kind of like stopped in her tracks in a way where if she's moving in, she gets stuck and she might get stood up a bit. I'm torn on whether or not she gets dropped and knocked down in this fight. It's very possible. And if she is able to win this against Marshall convincingly, then damn, you will really have to start talking about Claressa Shields as one of the greatest female boxers of all time. Up there with, Layla Ali, Christy Martin, Katie Taylor. Claressa Shields will have to be in that discussion. Again, multiple division, undisputed champion. And Savannah Marshall, when you look at the betting odds here, rare is it where you find a fight of this caliber, and I'm talking champion versus champion, undefeated versus undefeated, just basically where there are two clear A-side fighters, even though Claressa Shields will be billed as the A-side in this fight, because again, she's just the more accomplished fighter at this point. This betting-wise is as close to even as you will find with the fight of this magnitude. We're talking like minus 105 for Claressa Shields, making her a razor-thin favorite. But you know what? When this fight was initially scheduled, it was Savannah Marshall who was like the minus 120, basically the person who by a razor. Sometimes both of these people, and you can find books where they are both basically listed as better than even money, where they are both kind of listed as a slight favorite, where they are both in the minus 105 to a minus 115, something like that. It is rare in boxing where you find a great fight, a great matchup like this, where you are talking two A-caliber fighters and they are this evenly matched betting-wise. This is very rare. And one of the dynamics that I'm expecting here is that when Savannah Marshall throws her punches and she lands something, whether it's partially blocked or whatever, it will elicit a big reaction from the crowd. Same thing that I was expecting from Kambosos versus Haney 1 when Haney traveled to Melbourne to fight the then, 3, arguably 4 belt holder, George Kambosos, on his home turf. I expect the crowd to be going crazy when Savannah Marshall looks like she's doing something good or just throwing some punches. But the difference in this fight is that I think that Claressa Shields is going to be the busier puncher. Again, she's got to be very careful here. But for Claressa Shields to win the round on most of the judges' scorecard, I feel like she's got to do it somewhat convincingly, because you could argue that Savannah Marshall has a more fan-friendly style. One, she just looks smoother. The way that she moves is just like, she just looks like a very fluid type fighter. It's like quite a scene. I just don't know if she's going to be able to do so with the same control if Claressa Shields turns out to have demonstratively faster hands. And I do think that Claressa Shields is going to be showing a hand speed advantage, and I think she's going to be popping Savannah Marshall with the jab. Claressa Shields might want to, again, it's kind of a catch-22, because it's almost like she's got to throw a lot of punches to win the round. But if she throws a lot of punches, that does leave her vulnerable to get hit with something big. So will she get rocketed with a straight Savannah Marshall right hand, or with a nasty right or left uppercut? Again, Savannah Marshall could throw devastating uppercuts with both hands. And again, Savannah Marshall's style of knockout isn't one of those the ref comes in and saves you. Sometimes she just drops the opponent, knocks him clean out, where there is no question. The ref is just standing over the opponent, waving his hands. Dangerous, dangerous puncher. So I think Claressa Shields is going to get hit. And again, I've kind of gone back and forth with some of y'all in the comments on this fight. And you guys, those of you who think that Marshall's going to win, bring up some very valid points. And yes, I am I'm mentioning a lot of evidence that kind of points to Marshall pulling out the decision or stoppage, but getting the win. But then I'm going back to Claressa Shields and saying, I'm going to pick her via close decision, maybe even a split decision win for Claressa Shields. I'm still going to go there. And it's because I feel like every time I think that I've seen Claressa Shields' ceiling, and then I'm like, okay, this is going to be the fighter that really that pushes her or beats her. Like some people were thinking Christina Hammer or even Hannah Rankin or Ivana Habazan. Like there've been different opponents that people were kind of thinking maybe this is the one who's going to give Claressa Shields an issue. Even though betting wise, we haven't seen anything like we're seeing with Claressa Shields versus Savannah Marshall. But I still think that Claressa Shields is going to kind of outdo herself in this fight against Marshall and pull out a close decision win. Because again, it's a catch-22. If Shields doesn't throw enough punches, then I think Savannah Marshall wins the round, and then it ends up being a Savannah Marshall via close unanimous decision win, something like that. But I think Claressa Shields is going to be flashing hand speed. I feel like Claressa Shields also has very good defense. You don't see her getting tagged a bunch. For somebody who throws that many punches, she tends to throw the punches when she's comfortable enough and has asserted herself as the dominant fighter in the ring. Then she'll start letting more and more punches go, and then it becomes like an outpour of punch activity. I don't know if she'll get to that point in this fight with Marshall. Again, I think Marshall's going to have at least one or two big moments, either knockdowns or kind of buzzing Claressa Shields. But I think Claressa Shields is going to outbox Savannah Marshall and win 6 rounds to 4 or 7 rounds to 3. But yeah, let me know what you think about this highly consequential battle for Undisputed between Claressa Shields versus Savannah Marshall. Again, give a look to the preview that I did beforehand. It was pretty comprehensive. I really kind of got into the weeds, both styles-wise and history-wise, on both Shields and Marshall. But yeah, let me know who you think is going to win this and how. I really feel like Claressa Shields on the scorecards will kind of be up against it, to where even if, say some of the public, say more than 50% of the viewing audience feels that they saw a close Claressa Shields win on the scorecards, I feel like the crowd dynamic might make it such that Savannah Marshall might still get the slim decision win. But I'm going to go with Claressa Shields I will go as far as to say split or majority decision win, where one judge has it either a draw or for Savannah Marshall, and then the other 2 judges have it slightly for Claressa Shields. But yeah, let me know what you think about Shields versus Marshall in the comments. Please like the video, subscribe to the channel if you are into the fight talk. I can't wait for this one. I cannot wait for this. And the fight date is stacked, by the way. We got Shields versus Marshall. Again, Mayer versus Bumgarner. Haney versus Kambosos 2, also on ESPN, Top Rank. And then we've got Deontay Wilder versus Robert Helenius on PBC. I think it's like Showtime pay-per-view or something. But yeah, let me know your thoughts in the comments. I'm Wook. Thanks for tuning in.